Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 24. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday. Steelers Nation getting ready for the Thursday night Week 3 game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cleveland Browns. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good, especially for a short week here. Things have moved really quick this week, and got into the Browns tape last night, and obviously got a game on Thursday there. So we got a lot to do to cram into this show today. So hopefully it'll only be 4.5 hours, right?
That's kind of the way it's trending because there is so much for us to talk about today. A little bit later in the show, we'll have our Browns beat writer friend Scott Petrak. He covers the Browns for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette. You can follow him at brownzone.com. So we'll talk to Scott here in just a little bit. But Dave, I'm not even sure where to begin. There was just so much to talk about today, so much to try to squeeze into this show. Let's just start with some of the more recent and transactional type of moves. The news today that Joe Haden announcing his retirement after a long and really solid NFL career, the last 5 spent with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He'll officially sign a one-day contract and retire as a Cleveland Brown as opposed to a Pittsburgh Steeler. But, of course, the Browns drafted him. He did spend more time in Cleveland than Pittsburgh. So just want to put that note out there, a really good career for a really good guy.
Man, what a great human, too, man. Just in general, a very good player throughout his career, very consistent player. It'd been nice had he not, he didn't miss, quite, a nice handful of games, I think, due to various injuries. Remember, what was it, that first season, I think, with Pittsburgh, had the fibula injury there that sidelined him for a little bit. A lot of people forget, too, really, the last really big play that he made was that stop on, 4th down against the Titans, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that played a big part in that game. But definitely a guy that you celebrate his career and the things that obviously he did on the field and off the field as well too. I know very involved in Special Olympics and I don't know how much, how to praise him any more than that. And it's nice to see him get this done right before the Thursday night game and how they're probably should celebrate him on Thursday night. And that should appease both Browns fans and Steelers fans.
Absolutely. So wishing Hayden the best of luck as he moves on with his life work, as Chuck Noll used to like to say.
He'll be great in TV if somebody gets him lined up in TV, I think, to break down coverages. I really would like to see that.
Now, really good personality. His shoe game, always elite. So I'm sure he'll be doing more of that going forward. Dave, from a transactional standpoint in Pittsburgh, a couple of practice squad moves to note here today. The Tennessee Titans reportedly signing veteran safety Andrew Adams off the Steelers practice squad to their active roster. So that will free up an open spot for Pittsburgh to fill in the coming days. Also, a move the team made yesterday, signing wide receiver Jacoby Roberson to the practice squad and releasing cornerback Mark Gilbert. So those are the practice squad moves that have been made over the last 24 hours.
Kind of a curious move there, right? On the Steelers practice squad, would let Gilbert go?
Yeah, and what was the need to bring back a receiver? I'm not quite sure. Roberson was on the practice squad at one point, and then he got released and then comes back. So maybe that was all part of the plan. But to see Gilbert go, a guy that flashed a little bit last year in training camp as an undrafted free agent with the team, and then of course goes to Detroit, gets poached, and has that forced fumble in the overtime tie against the Lions last year, and then comes back. So you thought they just lost him last year. They wanted to keep him around. So I guess that whatever they saw from him, they didn't like in terms of since the time he's been away. So it was a little surprising, but ultimately, not going to make or break this team.
No, it's not going to decide the season. It'd be interesting to see maybe at some point if he circles back or something.
Right. So those are the roster moves there. All right, Dave. Let's see. Where do you want to go from here? I guess just hearing
injury report.
Yeah, injury report. Good call there. Pretty clean for Pittsburgh, which is good overall. Devin Bush, the only player listed on the injury report the last 2 days, and he's worked full during Tuesday's practice with that foot injury suffered late in Sunday's loss against the Patriots. So overall, the silver lining to all the doom and gloom that's being thrown around about the Steelers team right now is the team overall is pretty healthy.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously you got TJ Watt on IR, and that's obviously a huge loss there. And Casey before the season started. But man, how many times have we seen the Steelers team in the first 3 weeks of the season go into games with essentially clean injury reports? And obviously anything can happen in the Wednesday practice. We'll see what the Wednesday injury report, but based on everything we've seen so far in this short week, it's going to be one with no status designations on it. And I guess the big question at this point is what will happen on Thursday. Will Delonte Scott be elevated to the roster again, or is David Anini ready to go?
Right. We shall see. Scott obviously got the elevation last week. They could do that again if Anini is not ready. So we'll get her answered pretty soon. Really, from an injury standpoint, all eyes are on Cleveland. They have a pretty long list of names. There are already a couple guys who placed on injured reserve that obviously will not play in this game, including Chase Winovich and former Steelers tight end Jesse James. Jadeveon Clowney also been ruled out of this game. And Myles Garrett's dealing with a neck injury. Also, Jack Conklin, Joel Bitonio. So question marks along their offensive line. So really, for Pittsburgh's purposes, we're all watching Cleveland to see who may or may not play tomorrow night.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think Garrett, Bitonio, and Conklin, for that matter, are the three that you really have to circle and see what happens later this afternoon.
And we talked to Scott about that a little bit later in the show and get his view of who may play and who may not. So Dave, a lot of discussion about the Steelers offense. And of course, Matt Canada, he spoke with the media yesterday and was pretty nondescript, which is typical for Canada. Guy doesn't say a lot in those, press conferences, which is fine. It's his, right to do that. And I don't get too upset about that, but we didn't really learn a whole lot more from Canada when asked about this offense.
Yeah, I think he kind of opened up too with come out swinging, or what I forget what the opening
swing away, I think,
or swing away, and swing away they did. And there was a lot of I respect your question type answers there. I mean, what is he going to say to paint a rosier picture than right now? Yeah, we'd like to take more deep shots. Yeah, we'd like to try to get the ball in George Pickens' hands more. And I think the more talk-worthy, notable thing to come out of really all the press conferences on, what was it, Tuesday would have been, and we talked about, what's the audible situation when Mitch Trubisky coming off of, things that Charlie Batch has said. And you have said, look, it's not like he can't completely audible because there were, visible signs in the game against the Bengals. But in so many words, Trubisky, and I know we're jumping ahead here, but Trubisky said, not in so many words, not every play can he audible on. And obviously Canada was asked about that and says, we're kind of working, and I'm paraphrasing here, we're kind of working towards that. And, we had a guy here for 18 years and we got a new guy and new people. Don't you use, look, this isn't Mitch Trubisky's first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like he missed time during training camp or the off season, and he got to work a lot with his eligibles, not only in OTAs and mini camp, and even had the guys down there in South Florida and all like that. Is this just a control issue with Matt Canada that he, do they not trust Mitch Trubisky to check in and out of plays? This was a hot button enough for me to make it my terrible take on Tuesday there that, look, Mitch Trubisky's he's a lame duck. Everybody knows that. Sure. At some point this season, Mitch Trubisky, unless he starts playing unconsciously and putting together some good games, he's going to get the hook in favor of Kenny Pickett. So my view on this is, let the poor guy go down swinging, but put both gloves on his hands here and at least let him go down having the ability to check in and out of some of this stuff. And as you showed, it's not much to check in and out of.
Right. Maybe that's why there's no audibles. There's not a lot to audible too.
But yeah, but you get my point here, right? And I'm sure based on everything that you've seen on the tape in the last 2 weeks, and based on the things Canada has said and the things that Mitch Trubisky has said, let Mitch cook.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I did say, I think there are times where Trubisky has audible, does have the ability to audible, but what I said off of that, the next couple of words were, it's a pretty rigid and structured offense, and there isn't a lot of freedom overall. And I understand it's a new quarterback, and this happened last year with Ben and no huddle. Remember all the talk about the no huddle's been pared down, and they try to ramp things up as the season went along. So at a baseline level, I can understand, you're kind of building and adding things and doing the fundamentals first before you add on more. But as you said, we're not talking about a rookie quarterback here, somebody that's making his 5th career start overall in the NFL. He's 26 years old, has a ton of starting experience in Chicago. You got to allow him to have that freedom. If he was chosen to be this guy because he was the leader of this offense. He has to be able to lead, and being able to get in and out of good and bad plays is part of what leadership is about. And it's good for the offense. It's just good for the whole team overall. So I want to try to give some grace there, but at some point, as you said, if he's the guy, if you're trusting him to be the guy, then let him be the guy.
I agree, but here's the thing too that I added in my take for those that did not. I mean, we're on a short week here, right? So, how much shuffling of the chairs on the Titanic do you expect to happen on a short week here?
Very little. I mean, they basically have one practice, so I'm not expecting much change.
Canada, I guess, did his best to answer that. They were working towards it, but I don't know how much more time Mitch Trubisky has to work toward that. And I guess the same kind of question can go towards the hurry up offense as well, too. How much more? I mean, sure, it's not like that's a dramatic change from a week to week situation here, but within that, being as you are on a short week, how much more up-tempo stuff can you do?
I mean, you could do it. I'm sure it isn't hard to, have that package in. Some of the no-huddle plays are already on your card, and you could just lean on it a bit more. Canada did say that, quote, I think it's been effective, and obviously we could use it more in the game plan. Will they do that against the Browns? They could, but on the road in a pretty loud environment, that's going to be tougher to do. You saw no-huddle be more effective last week in a home game where things are generally a bit quieter. So, you can try to do it to change tempo and the positive things that come along with that. Obviously, you saw the benefits last week on the touchdown drive, but I will say it's harder to do on the road in a pretty loud place that Cleveland's going to be on Thursday night.
All right. What else with Canada besides, the up tempo and the audibling and that kind of thing? And Pickens.
Right. It did talk about needing to get Pickens involved more, and that's what Trubisky said. I mean, this team's been saying all the right things, but doing the right things is more important than saying the right things. And that's the guy that obviously needs to get the football more. This guy was a jump ball machine in training camp. He's got to be able to get some, 50-50 chances to work 70-30 in his favor. So they'll keep talking the talk, but they got to walk the walk.
Is this going to be a situation Thursday night where Trubisky goes YOLO? And, just heck, I'm just going to throw it, and maybe have some bad, because look, he hasn't been the best decision maker, and there has been have been a handful of throws that he probably should have made that he hasn't made in there. I'm kind of wondering if he's just going to say the heck with it. I'm going to let it fly.
Maybe, but to me, he's not really that type of guy, and he's someone that's going to play within structure and still do his job. There's a recognition that this team has to push the ball downfield, and Trubisky's talked about that as well. So naturally, those plays and those attempts, I think, will come. But as I've talked about, and I stand by this even more steadfast after going through the All-22, I'm less concerned about the lack of perceived, deep shots or middle of the field concepts or throws and things like that. I'm more concerned when it comes to Mitch Trubisky about missing stuff underneath, taking bad sacks and not seeing some of the underneath reads, as cleanly and as openly as he should. I think that's a bigger problem right now than anything else that's being talked about.
Look, there's a lot of layers to this bad onion right now, right? And I think you've done a great job on the site of breaking down what, the limited kind of, plays and formations and all used against New England. I thought that was quite excellent. And also, you had a video out that's, I think, on the site this morning of who's to blame, Matt Canada, or where does the blame lay? I forget exactly how you titled it there. But coming off of that, if I forced you to choose who is at more to blame so far, and you can't say equally here.
You can't say yes.
Yeah, you can't use one of my answers here. Who do you put more to blame on, Trubisky or Canada?
If you make me choose, and you are making me choose, to be very clear about that, Trubisky.
Okay. So better decisions by him could have led to at least a few more points.
Exactly. And the one play, his worst play against the Patriots was that 3rd and 4 red zone sack that he took, because he has Claypool wide open on the out. And that's a primary read. He sees it and just does not, for whatever reason, pull the trigger. And Claypool at least gets a first down there. Maybe he scores. I think he probably does score, just given his size. But, at least you move the sticks and you may punch that one in. And that's, 4 points that are potentially coming off the board there. So, those are those are the plays that I get the most concerned about with Mitch Trubisky. Not why didn't he throw the post against a single high coverage. It's really about, why is he missing Freiermuth on the out? Why is he missing Claypool on the out? When those are his reads in his line of sight, and just for some unknown reason, he's not, making those decisive decisions.
Now look, and by no means are you letting Matt Canada off the hook here. And I think the most concerning thing that we've kind of discussed and you pointed out really good in the thread was, look, it's okay to have a limited playbook, especially this, I guess this early in the season, that kind of thing. But man, and it's hard to know exactly without watching tape on all the teams around the league, just really how limited maybe other teams are. But you got to do a better job of mixing up the personnel groupings or specifically more so maybe the formations out of that, because I don't know how long it took you to compile what you did there. I imagine not too terribly long. You go through the all 22 tape 2 or 3 times, certain things start sticking out to you. They are super predictable, of what they're going to do just based off of kind of the formations alone, right? And down the distances.
Yeah, when I watched the tape, I went, who is the Steelers OC? Is it Matt Canada or Bill Murray? Because it felt like Groundhog Day watching this offense in terms of just the same stuff over and over and over again. And I'm typically one that cringes at the word predictable, because every fan has always called, whether it was Haley or Fietner or now Canada, the offense is predictable, which is a word that means everything and nothing. But in terms of the concepts that Canada ran against the Patriots, there weren't many. And more concerning than that, because, good teams like the Rams, like the 49ers, they don't run a lot of stuff necessarily, but they dress it up to look differently with different formations and personnel groupings and just different ways to run the same play. So it looks different to the defense, but it's the same core concept to the offense. That's kind of ideally how you want things to run. With Canada, he's running generally the same core concepts, but they look the exact same. For example, on that play action wheel route to Pickens that everyone's talking about, they went back to that a short time later and they dressed it up the same exact way. And the Patriots responded and covered and ended up in a Trubisky sack. So that's just one example there. He's not, everything just feels static and bland and so pared down. It really does have that college game feel. And my interpretation of that is because Canada comes from the college game and typically is coaching, a 20-year-old quarterback, he needs to really pare things down and let those guys play really within structure in a really rigid, confined scheme, so those guys don't make mistakes because they're 20-year-old quarterbacks. And the problem, obviously, in the NFL is, we're dealing with the highest level of players, and Trubisky's not 20 years old. He's a 26-year-old veteran guy, and the offense to me just feels there just is not a lot happening here. The concepts are really repeatable and just not dressed up well, and it's making this offense, I'm guessing, really easy to scout from an opposing scouting report standpoint.
And it goes back to, again, to what we're talking about. Really kind of my theme of the week is how much is going to change on a short week.
Yeah, probably not a lot. I mean, there are obviously things you can do in the way that you call things, but we're not expecting drastic change over the course of a couple days.
All right. All right. Anything else from Canada?
Let me check here. No, I think that's probably about it overall from him.
All right. What about Austin?
Yeah, I have to go back through the site here. He did get. I'm glad somebody asked the question of why Robert Spillane is the team's dimebacker, and if I can pull up the exact quote from Austin here, because he gave, I thought, a better answer than what Keith Butler gave last year. He said Austin did, quote, "Rob is a really good communicator, really sharp. I think he has a really good understanding of the pass game. I think the one thing he gives us is communication on third down, which is important to make sure we're all in the right position." So essentially just, being a good communicator is the reason why Spillane's playing on those money downs.
Right. And I think one of the things that jumps out, he said, look, we were good against run. We need to, have some things to clean up there. I think one of the more concerning things in that game was late when the Patriots were able to run quite effectively to salt away the final 6:33.
Yeah, what happened there on the final two runs, Pittsburgh shifted to their over front and playing really heavily to the strong side of the Patriots formation, and the Patriots countered smartly by running weak side, but also pulling the center to kind of get numbers on their side and get angles and leverage and really cut guys off, and Jack got swallowed up. So they basically ran the same play the final two snaps there to officially, salt that game away. I thought Pittsburgh, going back to the tape, I think the defense played well overall, but there were more mistakes than I think people realized that the defense could have done better, both from a coaching standpoint and from a assignment execution standpoint, that were probably overlooked in this game.
And they're going to face Austin was cognizant of the running backs that they're going to be facing. And obviously, the Browns team that's able to run the ball quite effectively, and says, look, this will probably be the best tandem of backs that we face all season.
Right. Anytime you play the Browns, whether we're talking week 18, whether you're talking last year, you're facing Chubb, you're facing Hunt, you're still facing a good offensive line that's well schemed, well coached. They have a very clear identity about their inside zone, their wide zone game. Now, Pittsburgh's credit, even as bad as their run defense was last year in both games against the Browns, they held that run game in check. So hopefully they can do the same. It'll certainly be required if you want to move to 2-1 coming out of this game. All
right. What else from Austin? Anything?
I don't know if we have anything else too much talked about Leal and like the versatility and the athleticism that Leal has. So that's a guy that's come in handy when you lose TJ Watt, and you can, take a guy like Leal and stand them up and kind of have him wear some different hats.
All right. Where to?
Let me see. What are your overall thoughts on the All-22? We didn't get to talk about that Monday because, of course, I don't think it had come out by the time that we had started the podcast on Monday. So what are your thoughts on the All-22 as you've gone back to the game?
Yeah, and mostly have spent more, it's like digging. You keep digging and you find more things, especially on the offensive side of football there. And definitely, I think, left a few plays out on the field. As you pointed out, Trubisky not letting it fly in certain situations. I thought there was some throws there that if he gets the football out quicker, there was a play or two to be made there. I'm now interested just to see if they're going to be able to stretch the field, man. And, while they did run effectively, more of those, there was a handful of those successful runs that were more kind of short yardage runs. I mean, they all count, man. 3rd and 1, if you don't get 3rd and 1, you're talking about not getting that 3rd and 1 on the ground type situation there. I thought the offensive line still, that's kind of the lesser of the evils right now. And I think that's good that's the case there. On the defensive side of football, it was frustrating to watch that thing over and over again with them not being able to get a lot of pressure overall. And look, the Patriots missed them. Mitch Trubisky wasn't the only one to miss some throws in this game. Because particularly on I think it was the setup play late in the first quarter there, kind of the setup play for the weak side run against the over front later in the game. The Steelers blew a coverage there, and that might have been a touchdown there if Mac Jones sees it and makes the throw there. So interesting to see how much more of the Leal we see on the end of the line. They're going to have to find a way to get a pass rush here. They're probably going to have to run blitz quite a bit, I think, in this game, and they're probably going to have to get creative with blitzes off the edge here as well too, because they've got to find a way to get pressure on Jacoby Brissette. And the thing too that kind of sticks out too is, look, Brissett's not known as the most mobile quarterback in the NFL, but he did use his legs a little bit in that game against the Jets on top of it. So top to bottom, I think the defense is fine. Heck, if you only give up 17 points in the game, you should win those games,
Sure.
Plain and simple. But I don't know how much I did think that they got out schemed as the game wore on against New England. And that's what good teams do, right? You use those, first 15, 20 plays of the game, assuming you don't fall behind 14-0 right out of the chute, to try to fill out what kind of sniff out what you're going to get in certain personnel groupings and certain plays, so you can go back to that stuff later. And I thought the Patriots did a lot better job of doing that offensively than the Steelers do. It doesn't seem like the Steelers, whatever intel information that they get early, it doesn't seem like they use it much good to their advantage. But on the flip side, the Patriots see maybe the George Pickens wheel rail route is a perfect example of that. The Steelers tried to go back to it, and the corrections were made, and there was no way that was there.
Right. I think Trubisky is getting unfairly criticized for not throwing the Pickens there. Again, that goes back to needing to understand context and scheme and progressions. And to me, Trubisky did what he's asked to do and made the quote unquote right read on that play. So I think there's been a lot of bad, screenshots and people trying to take snapshots of one moment in time, not understanding how this offense works.
Yeah, I agree.
How do you think? I agree. The defense, obviously not the problem. You hold a team to 17 points, and a touchdown came off of that muff punt by Olszewski. But can you continue to hold teams under, say, 20 points with no semblance of a pass rush? That seems to be an unsustainable type of model. The Patriots offense is not exactly a well-oiled machine. They had a lot of questions, this whole offseason, this whole summer. I mean, how is this team going to manufacture pressure? Do you think they can do it with some form of a four-man rush, or do you think this team has to now send 5 or 6 to get home?
I think they're going to have to send numbers, Alex. I really do. And rushing coverage goes hand in hand. And boy, the back end of that, sans the Witherspoon, the mossing of Witherspoon. I thought they did a fairly good job overall. And look, if Cameron Sutton makes that interception, that would have been a huge turning point in the game. But Alex Highsmith's got a tough battle this week for sure, and he's going to get most of the attention along with Cam Hayward, assuming Joe Bitonio plays. That's going to be a tough matchup again. Like Cole Strange, you go look at that defensive tape, and people are laughing at the Patriots for taking Cole Strange in the first round. Who's laughing now? Because I thought he played a really, really good game, but they're going to have to manufacture pressure somehow. I don't think they're going to be able to get it with a 4-man rush.
Right, and that creates concerns in the back end in terms of how you cover. One guy misses a tackle, now you get some issues. So that is, I think there's validity to the idea of there's some long term concerns right now with the defense.
I think that obviously the Browns are going to want to run the football in this game. So I think to some degree, that might help you out. But on the flip side too, and I think when we talked to Scott, Jacoby hasn't really thrown the football down the field yet. But I mean, it goes without saying you have to go into this game and try to stop the run. And then if you're able to stop the run, they're going to be in trouble if they don't get this Browns offense behind the chains, because if they're in a lot of 3rd and 4 situations, that opens up everything to them. And I think Jacoby's done a good job overall of getting the football out of his hands too. So that's another thing. You can't get after the quarterback if he's not holding on to the football.
Right. I think you're absolutely right about that. Some other all 22 takeaways to look at the offensive line, who was so rightfully criticized during the summer. I think at Pass Pro, the Scoop has really surpassed all expectations. And Dan Moore in particular, talk about progression. I think Dan Moore and James Daniels are the two guys that have made the biggest jumps in terms of guys who struggled this summer that have really played overall solid and steady football. Moore's independent hand use has been so much better than where it was. He seemed so uncomfortable with that and was relying on his two-hand punch more in the summer. He had some really good reps against the Patriots on Sunday. Of course, a big test this week or this Thursday, assuming and if Myles Garrett plays, and Daniels has done well at right guard, and Core Force been really solid, really steady, and quick off the ball at right tackle. So want to shout those guys out for, I think, showing a lot of progression from both the summer to now, and then even week 1 to week 2.
When Dan Moore, when he was drafted, I think the thing when we were talking about him and his college tape, that overall not a lot stuck out to him, except for if people go back and listen to those podcasts, occasionally you would see him do a really good job with those hands. And a lot of times what stuck out to me is not so much with his punch, because he obviously has struggled with that aspect of not shooting and allowing hands into him. I think where I remember Dan Moore at Texas A&M versus the Dan Moore that we saw on tape against the Patriots was him actually using those hands kind of above his chest at certain points, and either knocking those hands down or locking the hands up of the pass rusher on that edge. So I did come out of the Patriots game thinking, oh, look at the hand usage by Dan this time. Now I think there's still going to be times with the premier guys and the guys with the longer arms that he's got to watch to not let the hands in the chest. But overall, I mean, once again, the concerns that we had about this offensive line going into week 1 versus where we sit right now have decreased.
Right. And I think even as a run blocking unit, they made more progress in run blocking week 1 to week 2 than they did in pass pro week 1 to week 2. They got a much better push off the ball. They were more in sync. The double teams were better. So, I mean, I think, you're seeing progress there, and that will have to continue to beat the Browns on Thursday night.
Now, let's not confuse them with the Browns offensive line just yet, though,
sure.
right?
Sure. But progress, and that's all I'm really looking for.
Right.
I mean, we knew this unit would be a work in progress with the offensive line coach, with the youth and newness overall. So it's good to see these steps in the right direction, and they've not been the liability we thought that they would be. Now, they got to get in the Browns, lacking some pass rush guys, but Myles Garrett, if he plays, always a premier threat. More certainly struggled with him last year, but, you're encouraged by the direction things are going.
Hey, look, and maybe they'll catch a little bit of a break on a short week. I mean, they're already going to catch a break with Jadeveon Clowney not playing. One of their backups, Chase Winovich, is on IR. We'll have to see what happens. Even if Myles Garrett plays, how much will he look like Myles Garrett in this game? So, man, if anybody could use a break on a short week against a team that normally has a good pass rush duo in Garrett and Clowney, it's the Steelers offensive line this week.
Yeah, definitely. So any other final conclusions from the All-22 that you want to note, Dave?
No, I'm ready to. I've watched enough of it now. I've watched enough. I think we've got the bulk of it out there. I mean, and on the long week after the short week here, we might be able to circle back to matching up some things that we saw Thursday night versus the stuff that we saw in week 2.
Do you feel like my analysis of the Canada offense is valid? Because I do want to, try to give some grace. It's 2 weeks in, and, everyone has, concepts that they lean on and things that they like to go to and stuff like that. But to me, I've never, in all the years of watching tape, I've never been able to kind of go through and go, man, I just saw this play, and then go back and say, yeah, I just saw it. I mean, I'm writing down, timestamps of these are the same plays and same concepts. They look the exact same way, and they're producing the exact same poor results. It just feels different to me.
Well, the only thing is, and it's impossible to tackle without having a 31 more Alex Kozoras, would be,
which is a scary thought. 31 nasally short men running around.
Would be, where's the context related to the other teams in the NFL?
But does it feel different under, like, I didn't feel this under Fichtner or Haley. Did you?
No,
I
apologize if I haven't praised the work enough on it, but
no. I'm just asking to compare if it feels different or not.
No, look, I mean, the thing is normally you have to sniff a little bit and say, okay, well, this concept just run out of a different formation, right?
Right.
And it's people. I think most people, and hopefully we're changing that narrative. There is, it's not like teams come out with 60 different plays every week. Generally you game plan for the opponent. You probably have a good, I don't know, I would venture to say more along the lines of maybe 20 plays, depending on down distance, position on the field and all like that. And what helps you, there's a lot more lipstick put on the pig. Whether you're mixing in motion on a different play, maybe switching up a route combination on one side a little bit different, definitely the personnel, but to come right out with the same formation, the same motion, the same concept on both, once again, and like I said at the top of the podcast, I don't imagine it took you very long to put that set of videos together.
Well, it took a little bit of time just as I was kind of going through the tape.
Them,
but it just, as I kind of went through the tape more and more, it kind of revealed itself more and more. And it's not just that the concepts
it
was easy
identifiable.
Right, exactly. The concern is less about the concepts, but it's also the situation, because calls are always based off of down distance, line of scrimmage. And so what they're running on third and medium is pretty limited. It feels like what they're doing on 1st and 10 in terms of their pass game looks pretty limited. And so it's not even the overall concepts. I feel like if we can pick this stuff up, then you can only imagine what NFL teams are doing when it comes to tendencies and scouting, and because that's how you scout. It's based off of tendencies. On 3rd and 4 to 6 from between the 40s, they run this play X amount of time. That's kind of how teams are scouted and looked at. And it feels like this team is really easy to scout in that sense, because what they do on a certain down distance and situation seems to be repeated just so many times.
Even though it is a short week, how inexcusable will it be if we're able to quickly, because you've identified them enough at this point, and what is it? Total clips there was 11, 14? What was it?
It was 18 total plays with like 8 different concepts.
Right. Yeah. If we're able to pick these things out, even on the TV tape, most of them, how inexcusable is it on a short week to see a lot of what we saw against the Patriots?
I mean, I know short weeks present their own unique challenges, but yeah, I think the playbook, has a lot of calls to it. I mean, I think there are probably 50 or so different calls that you can go to, and then it gets pared down based on, again, down distance and line of scrimmage and what area of the field you're in, high red zone, backed up, stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it feels like there's more meat on this bone, more stuff they could call, but they're just not. They're keeping it so basic, very simple. It really has that, and it seems so cliche and kind of hacky to say, I guess, but it kind of has that college feel to it, where it's just a lot of the same stuff: play action left, play action right, same look overall. Just trying to keep things really safe, really conservative, as if there was a redshirt freshman quarterback starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
I feel, after I tell you one observation of mine coming out of 2 games, that I have a feeling, and based on some comments. Do you feel like they don't trust George Pickens from an assignment standpoint on a play-by-play basis?
I think there has been communication issues. There were in the first game, they said, and there was in this last game on that comeback route, I believe. So there is, probably some challenges there. But if you're going to play him as much as they're playing him, and they're playing him, the majority of the pass plays, then you got to find ways to give him the football or don't play him.
First play is got to be a wide receiver. If you get the look that you want, it's got to be a wide receiver. You got to get him involved early. A quick slant or something. I really think that they should use some heavy RPOs in this initially, and try to run with that for a little bit there, and to kind of change things up a little bit here. And you got to do more with George Pickens than just you go deep.
Right. And not throw him the football. I mean, this is a guy that should get some, chances to win contested, because that's where he's at his best, is winning contested. And I talked about Trubisky's concern being missing some of the short stuff. I mean, Deontay Johnson's averaging 8 yards a catch. Claypool's 5.5 yards a catch. I mean, you're not going to win an offense when your top receivers are averaging running back type numbers.
One of my concerns going into this week is Mitch is Mitch going to have you only live once, and just say to heck with it, and in other words, maybe force some throws that he shouldn't, similar to the one that he made against the Patriots early in the game.
Maybe. My guess is no, because I think he's a pretty smart guy and knows that's going to do him more harm than good, and he doesn't have the arm talent to get away with some of those plays. But we'll see. I mean, I think he knows that this offense needs to take some shots. It's just you get the right looks and feel like you can. But I talked about Monday. I feel like this offense has basically been built around the idea of play it safe, take a profit. In a phrase, you can describe this past game as the take a profit offense. Just hit the check down, get 5 yards on 1st and 10. Don't try to take the risky play downfield and go for the home run, but go for the interception as well, and trust our defense, trust our kicker. Like, that is the overall blueprint of this offense, and that's why it's been so conservative.
Here's the thing: I don't know how much Browns tape you've been able to digest just yet, especially offensively with them. The Browns offense is built to take a profit, and there's been no deep game with them yet. Okay. And right. you think Steeler fans are hollering about, man, can we stretch the field? They haven't stretched the field at all in 2 weeks here. But they are a lot more effective in, especially this last game, in the decision making that Brissette made. So you can win not throwing the football deep 20 yards down the field 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game. But they're able to run the football. Yeah.
I mean, you can have a take a profit pass game when you're averaging 200 yards on the ground. And their offense has been overall successful. I mean, they're averaging, I think, 28 points per game over their first two. So, I mean, they're getting the job done on that side of the ball.
Right.
But yeah, when you have that really ultra efficient run game, when Nick Chubb is averaging, I think, 5.8 yards per carry, you can hit the check down a bit more often. When your run game is mediocre and your pass game is poor, you have no offense.
Okay.
All right, Dave, my last note on the old 22, I might try to put up a cut up of this, but I might not have the time to do so. I love watching special teams just for the dumb stuff. My favorite part of special teams is when guys forget they're playing football and they're just scrapping. Like when Connor Hayward, and he got called for the personal foul on this, but he's just literally fighting Joe Cardona, the Patriots long snapper, which is a Navy man. I don't know if you can do that. Can you fight a Navy man? But they've just forgetting about the punt that's happening. They're just scrapping the whole time. Levi Wallace, by the way, was the missing man on that Gunnar Olszewski muff punt. So I don't know what happened there with Levi Wallace not being on the field, but that was the guy who should have been out there who was not. And I also saw one play. Rosie Nix has taught me to always watch touchbacks, and I saw Jameer Jones on one touchback just clock a Patriots dude, just hit him kind of blindside, kind of dirty, but I just love watching the silly stuff like that on special teams.
Growing up, born and raised in Pensacola, Florida, and having the hole in the walls there, fighting Navy boys is.
You missed your true call on the punt coverage for the Steelers.
I am guilty as charged. All right. Should they run a fake punt there?
Some teams have that check called where if the gunner is uncovered, they're going to throw the ball. But it was late third quarter, tight game. Some teams will not have that check, and I don't know how good of an arm Jake Bailey has. So certainly could have. And I mean, if the punter was, could throw the ball, then they would have converted there. But they got the ball back anyway in good field position. So I guess it all kind of worked out for him.
I didn't see the entire quote on this. I meant to go circle back last night to it, but evidently that kid on the edge was asked about that, and I need to circle back and see what he actually said.
Okay. I mean, some teams have that check, some teams based on situation. Obviously, they didn't run it, but they still got the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
So ball don't lie, as they like to say. All right, let's take a pause here and come back with our buddy Scott, who writes for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette. You can follow his work at brownzone.com. We'll come back with Scott and get a preview of the Cleveland Browns.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday. It is a short week, week 3 of the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers will play the Cleveland Browns on Sunday at First Energy Stadium in a game that'll be broadcast on Amazon Prime. With it being the Browns this week, that means we're glad to have back on the show once again Scott Petrak. Scott's covered the Browns for numerous years now. He writes for the Chronicle Telegram and the Medina Gazette. He also has a website that you can follow all of his stuff on, brownzone.com. He has a podcast as well too. We'll have have him tell you a little bit more about maybe some things he has lined up on that, maybe today or earlier this week as well. So you can follow Scott on the Twitter machine at Scott Petrak. That's Petrak. Scott, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
Hey, thanks, guys. How you doing?
Doing well. Just mentioned real quick at the top there before we started recording, busy off season for you, Scott. I hope that didn't interrupt that golf game of yours too much. So with that, let's kind of start at the top here. Don't want to spend a lot of time, obviously, on it, but kind of your quick thoughts on the whole courting of Deshaun Watson, the deal that they got done with him, obviously the allegations against him, and the suspension by the league. So kind of a quick overview on what went down this offseason with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it was a huge move in the offseason. It was the defining moment. The Browns gave up on Baker Mayfield, the former number 1 overall pick, and went and got Deshaun Watson despite the huge off-field baggage. And it's more serious than baggage, right? There's serious allegations against him, but the Browns felt like it was the right move from a football perspective. He's an upgrade from Baker Mayfield. They think a significant one. Now they have to start the season with him on an 11-game suspension. So the key for the Browns will be kind of keeping their heads above water while Watson's suspended, and then hoping he comes back as the Pro Bowl player he was, despite not having played a regular season game for, it'll be 700 days.
Scott, how do you feel the Browns organization handled this kind of along the way, after the fact when the owner and the GM and all met the media and all?
Yeah, I think they did a terrible job. Especially when we're talking about those news conferences in particular, when Deshaun Watson agreed to that 11-game suspension, he talked and he offered an apology, but then said he stands on his innocence. So the apology felt hollow. There was no specificness to the apology. And then the owner, Jimmy Haslam, got up there and was defiant and defensive. Gave the speech about everybody deserving second chances. They were ready to move on, and they tried to shift the conversation. I didn't think they handled it well at all. And I don't think at any time, not all members of the organization, but some members of the organization didn't give the situation the gravity that, in my opinion, it deserves.
Now, and obviously you've talked about this a ton, so I don't want to spend any more time on that, but I just want to get your thoughts on that. Moving on into this week's game, the Browns obviously coming off of what a weird week in the AFC North, right? There's the Steelers obviously lost, and then the other 3 teams in the AFC North all last-second losses. What's kind of the demeanor around there right now? And I heard Nick Chubb say, man, I shouldn't have scored that touchdown, but obviously if they don't miss the extra point, yada, yada, those kind of things there. But what's kind of been on a short week, getting ready for Pittsburgh in a big divisional game? What's been kind of the demeanor around there coming off that loss?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We were in the locker room Tuesday for the only time this week, and you try to get a feel for guys, but it's difficult. It's to me, one of the keys to the game will be how the Browns handle this psychologically, and are they able to get over it fast enough because it's an embarrassing loss. It's a devastating loss, all those things. They had the win in their hands and gave it away. So, it sounded like they were in a good headspace, but I think we still need to see that. There's a players only meeting, which you never want to have 2 weeks into a season. So it's going to be interesting. And I think to me, that's one of the biggest keys is emotionally, can they get past, just giving away a game because they should be 2-0 right now.
Scott, if I could take it to Jacoby Brissette, I'm really curious about his first 2 weeks of the year. The first week barely completes more than half his passes, and then last week against New York only throws 5 incompletions. I think there was a bobble by DPJ, and Njoku almost had a catch as well. What was the difference that went from him being relatively inefficient in week 1 to being ultra efficient in week 2?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think part of it was the emotions that he experienced in week 1, and he was really open and honest about overcome with emotions, but he was after the game. Like he broke down or got choked up, however you want to say it, in his post-game news conference after the win in Carolina, because it means so much to him to have the chance to be a starter again. And he thought he felt those emotions too much early in the game and then settled down a little bit after that. Made 2 good throws on the game-winning drive to set up that 58-yard field goal by rookie Cade York. And I think he's just more comfortable against the Jets, and he played really well. And not only did he throw it better, he was able to find Amari Cooper, the number 1 receiver. And I thought Brissette moved much better than he did in Carolina. And I asked him about that Tuesday. I said, "Hey, you look quicker to me." And he goes, "Thanks." And he kind of laughed, and he said, "I'm just slow." But there was, but there was, to me, some, he was able to pick up yards on scrambles. He doesn't look like, Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky, anybody like that, but he was able to do it enough that I thought his footwork was much cleaner. And I think that helped him complete passes as well.
To look at the Browns offensive line, which has always, been a really strong group over the last couple of years. They're battling some injuries right now. Can you talk about basically the health and the play of that group? You got Jack Conklin, right tackle. Sounds like he might have a chance to come back this week. Joel Bitonio's been so durable, hasn't missed a game since 2016. I know he hasn't practiced this week. And how is James Hudson in his second year held up at right tackle replacing Conklin?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I kind of feel like they're going to give Conklin this extra 10 days before they put him out there. I could be wrong about that. I've seen him work out before the last 2 games. He looks pretty good. But Hudson has held his own. The last memory Steelers fans, I'm sure, have of him is
Watt dusting
giving
him.
up 4 sacks to TJ Watt, right?
Yeah.
But he's played a lot better in his first 2 games this year than he did as a rookie. I think Conklin will be an upgrade, but Hudson, he hasn't stuck out like a sore thumb at all in these first 2 games. Jedrick Wills, Jr. at left tackle, he still needs to play better. Number 10 overall pick a couple of years ago. They're hoping he takes a quantum leap this year. I think he's off to an okay start, but not a great start. And then their interior is good. They've had turnover at center, but Ethan Posted is fine at center. And then they got, probably the best guard tandem in the league. It'll be interesting to see, Joe Bitonio rode the bike on Tuesday. We'll get the injury report later today. I would expect that he plays just because, like you said, he doesn't miss games, but the biceps can be a serious injury. So when those guys are healthy, like you said, they're a really good line.
Scott went through the all 22 of the Jets game first last night, and I thought I was missing some tape in there because of where the shot plays at. And then I went and looked at the charts and all like that. He's only attempted just like 1 or 2 deep passes of 20 yards or longer in the first 2 games. And I think one of them against the Jets was kind of an extended play over there to his left-hand side that he got to the tight end, I think, and all. And look, everybody's hollering in Pittsburgh, this team can't push the football down the field deep. And here the Browns are with Brissette only 2 or 3, maybe at most, deep passes. Do you expect that is that who they are? Obviously they're a running team and they try to steamroll you that way, but are we going to see Jacoby Brissette try to push the football down the field on Thursday night?
Yeah, it's interesting. When you started that, I was going to ask you if you were watching the Browns film or the Steelers film.
You're right.
Yeah, you know what? That's Jacoby Brissett's personality. He doesn't like to take chances. He's kind of a game manager that I think when you're kind of that backup bridge quarterback, I think guys get in the mentality of not making mistakes because that's what the coaches value, right? Is guys that don't make mistakes.
Right.
So I think he is careful. I will say this, against Carolina, they had 2 shots down the sideline on the first 2 drives, and he put too much air under one to Amari Cooper, who just killed J.C. Horn off the line. Horn fell down. And Brissette just needs to throw a bullet in there, and instead he lofted it down the sideline, and the safety got over. And then he had Kareem Hunt down the left side on the second drive, and I thought he tried to overcompensate and threw it on the line and overthrew Hunt by like a half a step. So they had a couple of shots. What's interesting is then they also had a DPJ, Down Peoples-Jones, on a double move down the middle, and he was open, and Brissette chose not to throw it. And that's when you see kind of the conservative mentality come out. So I don't think they're going to take a bunch of shots, but there are a couple of them there, especially off the play action, that the Browns need to hit to loosen up the defense so they can run the ball like they want to.
Well, you talk about play action there. They had a war in that game, man. There was a great play action to Chubb, and I thought Brissette had those Jets linebackers just all up, and it made for an easy crossing over there to the right side there. I thought that was very impressive. They like to use a lot of tight ends, right? And it'll be interesting. I think Jesse James is on IR now. I'm sure they'll still use a lot of 2 tight end sets. They're going to promote anybody from the practice squad to using that 3rd tight end role, because I think they like to do that. Or is our old buddy Joe Haden going to show up and get a helmet and kind of serve as that quasi 3rd tight end?
Well, they've been using Michael Dunn, the offensive lineman, in that role, as well as Jesse James. They've been kind of using both those guys. So I think you'll see more Michael Dunn without Jesse James. I'd expect they promote someone from the practice squad, probably Miller Forrestall, just so you have that extra receiving body if Harrison Bryant gets hurt or David Njoku gets hurt. Because I think they're moving away from some of the 2 and 3 tight end sets, or they want to move away from that when Deshaun Watson's healthy, or when he's back on the team, when he's not suspended. But they also don't have, the receiving core is not as deep as they need it to be. So I think it's going to be an evolution of the offense away from using as many 2 and 3 tight end sets as they did a year ago. But they're not there yet. So yeah, you'll still see a good amount of 2 tights and maybe 3 tights if you include that extra O lineman.
Okay.
Scott, coming into the year, whenever you face the Browns, typically I'm wary of that pass rush of Garrett and Clowney and the guys that rotate in. Now I'm not really quite sure what to expect. No, the Clowney's out, Winovich is on IR, Garrett's had the neck injury. What's his status looking like? Can you make maybe some sort of determination if he's going to play? And what guys will they rely on? How is Alex Wright, Isaiah Thomas look replacing Clowney and Chase Winovich?
Yeah, I've heard kind of conflicting things about Miles, whether or not he's going to be able to go. I lean toward yes, he's going to be able to play. That's the kind of guy he is. He played through a groin injury last year. He came back from COVID 2 years ago and wasn't right, but kept playing anyway and still was pretty good. So, if I were betting, I'd bet he plays, but, it's a short week, right? You never know. Right. Short week is what, Coach Kevin Stefanski emphasized. But either way, they're going to miss Jadeveon Clowney because when they have both those guys, offenses tend to put most of the attention on Myles Garrett anyway, right? Which leaves Jadeveon Clowney some one-on-ones, and he had 9 sacks and 19 quarterback hits a year ago. Got off to a good start this year in Carolina, and then had a strip sack with Joe Flacco last week and recovered it. The Jets were in the red zone when the play started. So Clowney's he's been good since he joined the Browns. But without Clowney out there, there's even more attention on Myles Garrett. Like I went back and watched those last couple of drives versus the Jets, and every time he was out there, he got double teamed. Like there was a running back or tight end hit Garrett on the way out, and then he's got the tackle waiting for him. Mm-hmm. And that just happens, probably not every snap, but it happens a ton of snaps. And I would expect it to continue happening because the guys on the other side are improving. Chase Winovich, I don't know how big a role he would have had here anyway, but he has some proven pass rush history in the NFL. Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas are rookies. And Wright's flashed. He's a third-round pick. He's a big guy, batted a couple passes. I think he has potential, but he's certainly not a polished pass rusher. And Isaiah Thomas, he's a seventh-round pick. Had a good preseason opener, but, it's a preseason opener. He's more of a physical pass rusher. He's playing with like a broken thumb, or he's got a cast on his hand. So that probably limits him a little bit. So I think the Browns are going to have to figure out ways to generate a pass rush besides just, all right, line up four guys and go get them, right? There's going to have to be some JOK at the line of scrimmage, maybe some Shoni Taki playing some end and rushing the passer that way, because I just don't think you can count on the front four, and especially if, Garrett's getting double and triple team.
Steeler fans are asking themselves the same thing without TJ Watt. So talking to you is like looking into a mirror, Scott.
Yeah, that's what I noticed from watching that Steelers game is there just wasn't the rush that you used to see.
Right, definitely not. What my question about the Jets game is the question I'm sure Browns fans are asking: what happened? You guys allow two long touchdowns defensively, blowing coverages. Why is this team struggling so much to communicate that allowed the Jets to come back and win that game?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know if there's a great answer. You keep getting we need to over communicate. John Johnson III, the safety, said, we're sending the message. It's not getting received by everyone. And Grant Delpit, I asked him, I said, is it a coach to player thing or a player to player thing? And he said player to player. So, I don't know if it's late hand signals and everybody's not looking in. I don't know if it's guys just, being dumb. I don't know what the issue is, because it can't be that hard to tell, to understand if you're in a cover 2 or a cover 3 or man to man, right? But yet it feels like one or two guys on these critical plays isn't getting the message. And that's, obviously incredibly frustrating for the coaches and the players and the fans. And not only that, it leads to losses, right? You can't have that happen. And we saw it early last year, and then they got it cleaned up, and the defense played really well over the last, 7 or 8 games. And everybody's back, pretty much. The coaching staff's back. The key players are back. You figured it would not be an issue, and then it has been the first 2 weeks. It's not just the Jets game. It happened against Carolina, too. They gave up a 75-yard touchdown that got Carolina back in the game with 6 minutes left. So, they keep saying it's an easy fix, but it's kind of like you need to see it get fixed before you believe that they can fix it.
Sure. My last question for you, Scott, then I'll let Dave finish things out. 2 games into the year, and the Browns are holding player-only meetings. That's never a great sign, typically. I don't know if infighting is the right word to use 2 games in, but there's just been a lot of chatter about issues in that locker room. Why does it seem like these stories seem to happen every single year with the Browns? Last year was Baker and OBJ. Those guys leave. These problems seem to persist. I mean, it's a talented team, and Stefanski, for my money, is a good coach. Why does it feel like the culture just seems to be always a bit off?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know if I have a great answer for it, except that, there's a history of losing. There's a history of dysfunction. And again, that precedes these players and these coaches and even a lot of the front office. So I don't know. I don't know if it just, when it crops up, it feels like same old Browns kind of thing, and it's not that different than any other team. I don't know about that, but I can, on this specific situation, I think it needed to be addressed because guys are looking at each other on the field. You talk about finger pointing, and it's not, finger pointing, but there's raised hands and, well, why didn't you have that guy? And what's going on here? Guys throwing their hands up. And then you had this Denzel Ward defending himself on Twitter and to us on Monday. That wasn't his coverage. He was playing a cover 2 cloud coverage and somebody else's mistake. And I don't think that sat well with a guy like Grant Delpit, who, if Denzel Ward says it's not his fault for the 66-yard touchdown to Corey Davis, then it must have been Delpit's because he was the next guy closest, right? So,
and Ward said, "What? It's not my fault, but I'll take the blame." Like he kind of talked out of both sides of his mouth there. Yeah.
So I think there definitely had to be things ironed out, and not just from a communication standpoint, from a chemistry standpoint, for these guys to stick together and move on. Now, they all say they're close and it's not going to be an issue, but it felt like something was percolating there. And the hope for the Browns is that that players-only meeting allowed them to calm things down and, again, try to stay on that same page where there isn't that blame game and finger pointing, because we know that that's obviously not good for a team.
Scott, obviously a Thursday night game, just 3 weeks into the season. The Steelers have got a lot to clean up. They're talking about, will Mitch Trubisky be able to audible more at the offensive line? Will they be able to get deeper shots down the field? Those kind of things. But with it being a short week, I guess my question is, how much do you think either one of these teams are going to, be able to change much of anything from what we've seen on tape in the first 2 weeks? I mean, it kind of feels like what we see in these first 2 weeks is what we're going to get, and whichever team kind of executes what they've been doing better is going to win this game. Is that kind of your feel on this? Do you expect a lot of changes schematically? I mean, especially on offense here in this game?
I don't. I think you're right, and I think it's really hard to do on a short week and against a familiar opponent, right? They kind of know what each team's going to do. I would say that if I were the Steelers, I'd figure out a way to take some deep shots because, Mitch has the arm. He's got the guys on the outside to give it a shot, and maybe it's a matter of the coaches convincing him that the Browns are going to bust the coverage, so go take advantage of it, right? If we give you enough opportunities, somebody's going to be open deep. So if all the changes I could see, that would be one of them, that the Steelers try to take advantage or try to make the Browns prove that they have solved those busted coverage issues, because that's an easy way to win a ball game is you score one quick deep touchdown and it kind of skews everything.
What was your prediction for the Browns heading into the season, Scott?
8-9.
8-9. Well, I had the Steelers 9-8, and Alex, did you have them 9-8, Alex?
I thought we both had 8-9.
Okay,
or the Browns. Oh, what did I have? The Browns. I had the Browns.
I didn't. I can't remember what I had for the Browns, but I'm talking about the Steelers. Okay. You had the Steelers at 9-8.
I had them 8-9.
Okay, I had them 9-8. I think there. So we're all on the same line there. All right, Scott, it's that time again. What do you think happens Thursday night between these two teams? The line has jumped from 3.5 to 5.5 for these last couple of days. That was curious.
It is curious, and you never know why that is. Obviously, somebody thinks the Browns they're going to bounce back, and I don't know, I guess they're more talented. I don't know. It seems like a big spread for these guys matching up. I'm going to go closer game. I do think the Browns will be able to bounce back. I'm going Browns 20-17.
Okay. And tell people about what's going on over at Brown Zone in the podcast.
Yeah, you can see everything I do, everything I write is over Brown Zone, brownzone.com. We'll have a preview and then 3 things to watch, 3 key numbers. I got a story up there about Joe Haden wanting to come back and sign a 1-day contract and retire as a Brown. Obviously played for both franchises. And then the podcast, you can link to it through the website or, it's on all your Apple Pods and it's called Zone Coverage. And I'm planning on taping one tomorrow morning, just kind of as a quick game preview because we weren't able to get one early in the week.
All right, awesome. Scott, we appreciate it. We had people don't know, we had a couple of technical difficulties here at the beginning of this show. Scott was patient enough to work along with us there, and we certainly do appreciate him for that. Scott, it's going to be a long time before we talk to you next, so a long time. We'll probably be talking about your golf game about that time. I don't know, but anyway, Scott, thanks for coming on the Terrible Podcast again with Dave and Alex.
All right, see you, fellas.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Scott Petrak. You can follow him on Twitter at Scott Petrak. He writes for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette. Be sure to check out brownzone.com and his zone coverage podcast. I trust his zone coverage is better than the Browns' actual zone coverage based on how last week ended up for them.
You know what? They when you look at their coverages and all, they do mix their coverages up. I got to hand it to them. They they mix their coverages up quite a bit. And here's a quick breakdown for you that I did running through. Cover 3, I think 14 times, cover 2, 15 times, cover 1, 14 times, cover 2 man 2 times, quarters, cover 4, 20 times.
Oh, wow.
Cover 6, 2 times.
Okay. So predominantly zone. When they go man, it sounds like cover 1, but a good mix, as you're saying. That's a good breakdown by you.
What do you think we're going to see more of from them in this game, though? Or what should they run more of in this game?
I mean, it feels like the Patriots played a lot of cover 2 last week and kind of kept things shallow and forced the Steelers to not, take those vertical shots. So I'm not really quite sure. I think we'll see more. I think we'll see predominantly cover 1, cover 3. Be honest with you. Yeah,
I think why wouldn't you have middle of the field?
Yeah, it seems to be a good defense against the Steelers. But I think for the Browns, they're just focused on simplicity. Maybe they've been doing too much. They've talked about having 2 calls pre-snap and trying to communicate that based on the look that they get, and that's leading to potentially some coverage busts. So I'm not really quite sure. I haven't gone through the defense from this past week from the Browns Jets game, so I have to do that later today. But you may be right about cover 1, cover 3.
And it'll be interesting to see if they have the issues with the pass rushers. Are they going to have to blitz more?
Yeah, they may have to. And I know Scott mentioned a guy like JOK that could be an effective blitzer or elite level type athlete. So we'll see. Again, I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland both have some similar problems they're talking about right now.
With them, with the Browns seemingly not so far liking if they. Some guy said I jinxed it on Twitter last night with Jacoby. If they come out and take 7 or 8 deep shots and connect on 5 of them, I don't want to hear it. All right, but you want to play more zone against them and just keep everything in front of you and just try to work downhill.
I mean, Pittsburgh's played a ton of zone, a lot of cover 2 to start the year. I mean, each game is going to be different, I suppose, but the Patriots offense and the Browns offense overall probably aren't all that different in terms of how you approach things. They want to run the ball and make the safe play offensively. So yeah, they may come out and the way that the first 2 games have gone, I feel like we're going to see a lot of cover 2, a lot of zone in this game.
As we talked about with Scott, and what jumps off the tape with them is multiple tight end usage. Boy, they'll line them up across that front there, and they can run every bit of all schemes, running schemes. They can run outside. They can run the power gap, inside zone. Obviously, I tell you what really stuck out to me as well too. And the better your run game is, obviously probably the more you're going to be able to get people to bite and play action. If they have run success early in this game, then I think Jacoby Brissette really does a fantastic job of hiding that football. I mean, there's a couple plays in that game where all those linebackers are coming downfield looking for the ball carrier, and Jacoby does those half rolls and just easy pitches and catches. They'll like to use their tight ends on some flare outs here and get the ball in their hands out there. They will use a lot of kind of, 12-yard kind of crossing over routes, if you will, in this with both the tight ends and their wide receivers. But make no mistake about it, you have to stop the run first and foremost with them. If you don't, then it's going to make for a long game, and you get into the fourth quarter in a situation where they're maybe trying to run the football, and you may be worn to a nub at that point. And you got to get Jacoby Brissette in those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 situations. Make him put the ball in the air, maybe blitz him in some of those, and try to get a takeaway from him. And I think you really got to make him. Let's see how good Jacoby is at pushing the football down the field.
Sure, you're absolutely right, Dave. It also, anytime you play the Browns, it really starts with being able to stop and mitigate their run game, and that's of course easier said than done because they got 2 really good backs and Nick Chubb, who, for my money, I think Nick Chubb, pound for pound, may be the most talented running back in football. I mean, he's right
after contact, man. He even on one of those holding calls in that game against the Jets. His contact balance is so good.
Yeah, I mean, he's got burst, he's got power, he's got speed. I mean, he's not doing a lot in the pass game, I guess. Excuse me, but Other than that, he's been, fantastic and been, one of the top backs in football for a long time. But Kareem Hunt's a guy that can be an asset in the pass game. He gets more involved there. And so it's really about, staying in your gap and defending the zone scheme and, making sure that the back can't find that crease and, plant that foot and get upfield. Because once he does that, then you're in trouble.
They are good interior offensive line of getting to the next level, man. I mean, they are really good. They're very good at reach blocks interior and man, and all you need to do is give either one of those two backs a crease and they'll find it. Both of them are good one cuts guys and have great vision.
And I think Hunt had some of the best contact balance I've ever seen when he came out of Toledo. I mean, he had just great contact balance, and they've been doing this scheme for years. They got a really good O-line coach, Bill Callahan. Yeah, so they rep this so much, it's second nature to them. So that's always going to be the key. And to your point earlier about third downs, the Browns have the fourth best third down conversion rate in football, 53.3% of the time.
What's their average third down distance?
I was just going to check that. I imagine it's probably pretty good, but I'll need a second here to pull that one up. But when you're fourth in the NFL, generally you're probably not seeing a lot of 3rd and 9. I'm gonna guess.
But yeah, while you look that up, you're going to see a lot of stacked offensive lines, man. I mean, you're going to see these at least 2 tight ends of theirs, and we'll see what they do with the extra. They did use the extra lineman, I think, in that game against the Jets, and they just strap it up and see if you can stop it or not. And on a short week, how much is that going to play into this game? Once again, you're talking about a defense that played 100 snaps in week 1, kind of got out schemed, worn down a little bit there late in the game against the Patriots, and now you're on a short week. How's that going to impact this front?
Browns are averaging 3rd and 6.3, so needing 6.3 yards on third down, which is only 14th in football. It's not as good as I thought it would be.
Right, you would think it'd be a little bit lower than that with their conversion rate. So Jacoby's doing. If there's one guy that's in Steelers Nation that has watched a lot of Jacoby Brissette film, you probably lead the list there. And you were high on Jacoby ahead of them signing Mitch Trubisky, and thought Jacoby could be a guy that the Steelers could look to there. His game against the Jets was very, very efficient, as we pointed out already here. And I think that's led to him they've been able to move the football down the field and do so not necessarily in chunks.
Yeah. Brissette was a guy that I thought made sense because of the NC State connection, because the whole Steelers coaching staff were former Wolfpack guys. But I think Brissett's managed things well and ran the offense really well last week. Yeah, the Steelers are actually averaging a shorter third in yardage needed situations than Cleveland. They're needing only 6 yards per third down. The Browns at 6.3, but the Browns are averaging 6 yards on every single third down, and the Steelers averaging just 3.6 yards. I
wouldn't have guessed that. How many third downs for each team?
I would need probably some time to pull that up as well. I don't see the numbers. Well, hold on.
Doesn't it give you number of plays or no?
Hold on. Yeah, it does. The Browns have had 30 and Pittsburgh has had 31. So basically.
I would have never guessed that.
Right. Same here. So I don't know if that's being skewed at all based on 1 or 2 situations where maybe they had a 3rd and 27 or something like that. I don't quite know, but Browns overall been efficient.
Okay.
With the Browns defense, obviously there's a lot of question marks about their pass rush or lack thereof, having to see if Myles Garrett will play, and no Clowney, no Winovich in this game. So they'll rely on their rookies. And Scott talked about Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas. I thought Wright wasn't my favorite prospect coming out. I thought Thomas was an interesting sleeper with his burst and ability to bend the edge, but Wright's a pretty big guy. So he's got some size and some power, and he'll be a tough guy to block.
One guy that we haven't talked and I don't think even talked about with Scott, that Perrion Winfrey. Didn't he get set down for this last game? This guy's going to be chomping at the bit, isn't he? And isn't he the kid that just was destroying everybody down at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, he had a really good Senior Bowl week, but you're right. There was some off-field thing where he got pulled out of a practice or something like that a week ago, I think. I don't know what the story was there. I mean, they're kind of weak in the middle in terms of their interior defensive linemen. And so, if there's a place to attack, it's probably more between the tackles. But Winfrey's a guy that certainly has talent.
Yeah, especially when it comes to rushing the passer.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of his game overall. In terms of the linebacking core, JOK is just an animal. I mean, he's just, crazy athletic and twitchy and sideline to sideline kind of guy. So you got to know where he's at.
Yeah, absolutely you do. Yeah, he's lived. I was worried about his smallish, kind of being a little bit undersized, but he has impressed so far.
Yeah, definitely. And then the secondary, as Scott talked about, it's been a lot of Browns beating Browns, a lot of coverage busts. I mean, it's a talented group. They got, some good players with Denzel Ward and Delpert and John Johnson and Greg Newsome, former first-round pick recently. So, I think it's just been a lot of issues on their end. How can Pittsburgh exploit that stuff? I guess it's harder to answer. I think it's more about the Browns trying to clean up their own problems right now.
Right. And, they don't have Dedrick Ward's on IR, so they're even missing him.
Right. So I should notice, the special teams, they had the worst field goal percentage in the NFL last year. And right now, Cade York is 5 for 5, including a 58-yarder to beat Carolina. Now, he did miss an extra point last week against the Jets, and that obviously proved to be critical in a 1-point loss. But their kicking game is a lot better than what it was. And so that should not be overlooked in what will probably be a close game.
I like how they used. They used that Felton kid a couple times creatively, so I think you'll see the ball in his hands a couple times on the offensive side of football in this game.
He's playing like a one-man game of tag. They motion him around and run him around so much. He's only touched the ball, I believe, twice. I was talking to a Browns guy, and apparently he's had a lot of issues on punt returns. He's already muffed 3 punts in 2 games, if you can believe it. He's not lost one, and they don't have a lot of options right now because Jakeem Grant was supposed to be their guy. He blew out his Achilles this summer. So, can Pittsburgh make a splash play there? Miles Boykin, maybe need some Miles Boykin to make a play in the punt game.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see how Belichick approached Boykin last week too? They started off the first rep of the game. The first punt was they had a traditional vice on Boykin. And then after that, they had a guy like 40 yards back that would kind of run up to Boykin as he was running downfield to try to pop him. So it was interesting to see Belichick try to change the approach to defending Boykin, which really just speaks to how good Boykin has been.
And that's the bottom line. That's why we've been singing his praises all throughout the preseason and first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah. So I think Boykin's been really. We've talked about it, you and I, this whole summer, but I think the fan base needs to recognize Boykin a bit more for what he's doing on the team unit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, I think it's time to give our. We're going to do predictions now, or how are we setting this thing up? You want to talk about our friends at MyBookie first? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's real quick talk about our friends over at MyBookie and MyBookie.ag. Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, Mac Jones or Lamar Jackson. It's a show of young guns and the old guard, and nothing makes these matchups more exciting than having skin in the game at MyBookie. MyBookie has super contests, survivor pools, and a double deposit bonus that gives you everything you need to secure the bag. Getting started is simple. Sign up today and use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible, and you'll double your first deposit instantly. That's promo code TERRIBLE to double your deposit up to $1,000 when MyBookie. This isn't your grandfather's bookie. This is MyBookie. Put your money where your mouth is and get rewarded for it. Begin your winning season today exclusively at MyBookie, MyBookie.ag, and use promo code TERRIBLE at sign up to take advantage of their double deposit bonus, and make sure you get on some of those super contests and survival pools that they have as well too. So we appreciate MyBookie for being once again a supporter of the Terrible Podcast.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, let's make our pick here. I'm going to defer. I won the toss. I'm deferring to you to make the pick here. Because I wrestle with this one. I really don't have a good feel for this game.
I don't remember the being shown the coin or anything like that. Look, this thing I started off at 3.5 and jumped up to 5.5 as a consensus across the board at some of these books. Right now on MyBookie.ag, they have this thing settled at Browns laying 4 points at home against the Steelers with an over-under of 38.5 points. So expecting obviously a low-scoring game in this. Normally the home team gets 3 points in this. They have it at 4. I have wrestled with this as well, but it comes down to this being a short week. It comes down to this being played in Cleveland. This comes down to wondering if the Steelers can still score points and push the football down the field. I am a little bit worried that the Steelers defense is going to have problems stopping this running game overall here. I have the Browns winning this 21-16. I was going to go 17, but that's exactly the line right there. So I will actually have the Browns now covering this 21-16, and I think they get to 21 maybe the hard way in there somehow.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think there's no, you can't argue with picking the Browns. I totally understand that. I really don't, like I said a moment ago, don't have a good feel for which way this game's going to go. Pittsburgh is the healthier team. I think the Browns might be missing a lot. I mean, I think a guy like Bitonio probably plays. Garrett probably plays as well, but how healthy these guys are, maybe some questions there. I'm the kiss of death here, so take everything with what I say with a grain of salt. I'm going Pittsburgh in a really low-scoring affair, 16-13. In this one, it'd be a late Boswell field goal, gets the job done. I think Pittsburgh's shown they can, play the Browns' run game well. They did it last year, despite how bad they were overall. Against the run, they've been better this year. But clearly, and maybe they'll put more pressure on Jacoby Brissette to do more than what he's had to do the first 2 games of the year in this offense again. Eventually they're going to hit a couple of deep shots. Maybe the Browns still have some communication issues. So give me Pittsburgh in a close one, 16-13.
So you expecting the Steelers to probably win the turnover battle in this one, and probably the explosive play battle too, right?
Or at least be, dead set even. And if you can stop throwing. I mean, this team held the Browns under 100 yards rushing in both their matchups last year, despite being the 32nd ranked run defense and allowing 200 yards to Minnesota and Detroit and I think Baltimore once or twice. I mean, they held the Browns in check. They know how to play this run game well, and they have better pieces to do that this year. So it's always a threat. There's no guarantee, but that's kind of what's pushing me towards picking Pittsburgh was what they did against the run last year, and they should be able to carry that game plan over this year.
How big a game is this? I mean, it's huge, obviously, because it's a divisional game. And I asked that because, man, here we are now 2 weeks into the season. It's way early. But you look at, and we talked about that gauntlet of games, right? I mean, not only, up until the bye week there, looking at this thing, the Miami Dolphins and the Philadelphia Eagles look a lot different than I envisioned them when this schedule came out. And those are the final 2 games in week 7 and week 8, right before the bye. We already knew that, the Cleveland game would be we knew the Patriots game would be a tough game. Cleveland Steelers, tough. The Jets look a little bit different with Flacco. I don't think they're quite the pushover maybe initially thought. And then you go Bills, Buccaneers, Dolphins, and Eagles, with the Dolphins and Eagles really looking like they might be for real here. So, I mean, the magnitude of this game for several reasons, because the Steelers got to get the stench off of them, even though they're. I mean, if you want, I'll play the glass half empty guy here. They're a blocked extra point away from being 0-2, and you think people are really hollering. They really would be hollering after that. I mean, but they are 1-1. They do lead the AFC North. They are 1-0 in the division. We know with this 2022 Steelers team that the path to being in the playoffs is probably going 4-2 or better in the division. So they better win this game.
Yeah, I don't want to call a week 3 game a must win when you're 1-1, but it's a really big game. And I think what you said a moment ago is the key point to get that stench of that loss off. Because if you lose this game, you got to carry that for 10 more days. You've lost, the last 2 games, you're 1-2 overall, 1-1 in the division. But if you win and you're 2-1, for all the complaints people have right now, if they beat the Browns on Thursday, you're 2-1, you're leading the North, you get 10 days to celebrate that win and enjoy things. You're pretty happy. You're in a good spot overall if you're 2-1 through these first 3 games and win both those games against divisional opponents. So it is a pretty important game just to help, shape the landscape and the tone. And as you said, it comes down to who plays best in the North is going to win the North. And if Pittsburgh's 2-0, that is a fantastic start.
All right, one of us is going to be right. Well, unless there's a tie. Yeah, we keep forgetting because they ties is a thing now. But I'm very confident that one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong.
And it's probably going to be you because I'm the kiss of death when it comes. I
got to see more from this offense, man.
Sure.
I got to see more from this offense. If they lose this game and Trubisky plays at the level that he played against the Patriots or a little worse, how likely is there to be a quarterback change with the long off? Because if you're going to make one, that would be the time with the long week and all, right?
Weren't the players off for those couple of days anyway? So does the long week matter all that much? Because they're not going to practice, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right. But won't they treat Monday as that bonus day or whatnot?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, I hear your question. I still think it's going to be less likely than people think. If this team's 1-2, you're still in it. I maybe if they were to lose to the Browns and to the Jets and you're sitting there 1-3, then I could see that change at the earliest. But I've always, maintained the point that Mike Tomlin will be the most patient man in Pittsburgh when it comes to a quarterback change. And ultimately his opinion and vote is the only one that matters. So, I mean, and provided that Trubisky does not implode and throw 4 interceptions in this game, I still expect him to be the starter through at least week 4.
I do as well, too. And I still hold by the fact that I think at least until the bye week, he's going to be in there.
Yeah. So we'll see. But hopefully it's a moot point and we're talking about a Steelers win and everyone's feeling good again.
All right. I'll gladly take one on the chin for a wrong prediction this week.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, Bryce. Hey, guys, it's Bryce. When it comes to the Patriots, there's no rivalry here, just ownage. Tomlin in most matchups will have the coaching advantage, but not against Belichick, just the way it is. Some thoughts. Give me my flowers. By the middle of last year, I was one of the first people to write and suggest that Canada might need to be one and done. That didn't happen, but the proof is in the pudding, and the players aren't frustrated. Just after 2 games, my guess is that this frustration we're hearing has been boiling over for a whole year with how Canada does things. Alex, I know you said start Kenny, but even when Mitch's warts, if ultimately the problem is Canada, then how much will the quarterback change help the team? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Number 2, who do we have to account for as the second best wide receiver on this Browns team that can potentially hurt us on Thursday? Donovan Peoples-Jones can make plays. I'll tell you that. It obviously goes Amari Cooper, and then I would think Donovan Peoples-Jones. And what's your thoughts about if you switched to Pickett, SOS, same bleep, different day?
Yeah, again, to go back to my point about Pickett, that was before the year began. And again, the calculation could not be more simple. It was he was ready to play. And that's ultimately the only thing that mattered to me, is that he showed he was ready to run an offense, execute it at a high level, do the fundamental, foundational stuff, take care of the football, be accurate, run an offense, run 2-minute, win, produce, did all those things. So he was ready. So would things massively change if Pickett was under center? Probably not, but who knows? I mean, I'd love to find out, I guess, at some point. But the calculation was less about the offense and the scheme and the O-line and the opponent, and it just came back to one central core question: is he ready to play? He was, and that's why I advocated for Pickett to start the year.
And if you want Matt Canada fired, the Steelers have never fired an offensive coordinator. Now, they have taken play responsibilities away from Ray Sherman years ago, later in the season, and then ultimately fired him after that season there. But you would have to have probably a significant Omar Khan. Really, it would have to, I think, come down from Rooney, right? Get him the hell out of here. Kind of situation there. Or maybe you can root for Matt Canada just getting just saying, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
He's never been one to stay in one place. 2 years for him is an eternity. He's always been a bounce around kind of guy.
I mean, to me, it sounds like if people want Canada gone now, it would take him quitting.
Yeah, and really 3 years because he was the quarterback's coach the first year. So this has kind of been a long stop for Matt Canada. I think we both have the feeling, and it's probably obvious to say this may be the last year of the Matt Canada experience.
Oh, yeah. It ain't going past this year. Paul Ryan writes in, hey, this is Paul Ryan here, not the politician. He says, wanted to say thanks for all you guys do. Longtime listener, first-time emailer. I hear a lot of fans on the Kenny bandwagon, but myself, I'm totally against it, Paul says. Putting a rookie in against the reigning AFC champ Cincinnati, who also has a solid defense, could have really hurt the mindset starting your career with a loss. He says, add to that, if he played his first game and lost and then when faced one of the best schematic coaches of all time, he says, I still say he's a cheater in Bill Belichick, who did a legit good job on how to shut down the Steelers offense of the last couple of seasons. He says, don't get beat deep, play the gaps and attack the checkdowns. As far as what Belichick did, he says, I think Pickett would be frustrated as well, and confidence is everything. He says it's all just speculation, but it's just different perspective from all the other what ifs that the Boo Birds are throwing at you. He says, outside of the special teams blunder, the D held them to 10 points, and the final score might have ended 14-10. So in the end, it would have still been a close game, but the play calling on the offense looks juvenile compared to a few years back, he says. Thoughts? Thanks again for all the hard work, keeping off season so much shorter by all the updates and insight. Look, Paul, we've obviously hit on a lot of this already. I understand why they went with Trubisky over Pickett. And I understand your concerns about the confidence and all, but look, I will say this, and I've said this all along from the preseason. At no moment did any moment in the preseason look too big for Kenny Pickett at all. I mean, he looked like maybe, this is our backup that we got to get in there and get time in, kind of thing there. So, the whole confidence thing, even if he would have started and took him one on the chin against the Bengals and then followed up, I think he's a very mature and mentally strong guy that I don't think I'd been worried about him from that aspect of it there.
Same, not at all. If you draft a guy as your number one quarterback, the first quarterback off the board, as the, given the keys to the franchise, I'm assuming you think the guy's pretty mentally tough. And I think Pickett is. And, whenever he does start, whenever he does play, whether that's week 4, week 8, week 17, week 1 of next year, he's going to have a bad game. He's going to take one on the chin. He's going to have his lumps. Happens to every quarterback in football. Peyton Manning threw 28 picks his rookie year. So, that's inevitable. That comes with the territory of playing the quarterback position. Even when you're Aaron Rodgers and a Hall of Famer, you still had, bad games, for example. So that's not part of my calculation. Again, just to repeat it, goes back to, is he ready? To me, he was. To me, he should have started week 1, but I understood and, of course, expected this team to go with Trubisky. And as I said, I think they're going to stick with Trubisky longer than people think or want.
I agree. Travis Tallman writes in, hey, guys, longtime listener, first-time writer. All right, Travis, first-timer. He says, I'm an older Steelers fan. I go back to the days of Bubby Brister and my Steelers fandom. That being said, I've always been jealous of teams with high-flying or West Coast offenses. The only Steelers game I ever attended was with Kent Graham at quarterback. Oh, bless your heart, Travis. And the Steelers did not manage to score once. I'm not a reactionary fan, nor am I calling for knee-jerk changes. However, why is it that the Steelers always seem to have a conservative approach to offense culturally with the offense these days? Am I even missing? He says, I am even missing the Ron Earhart days of the run, screen, punt. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you for all you do. P.S. I'm a military and I'm in the military, maintain season tickets to watch every game. I love the updates on Twitter while the game is live. It's like watching the game with your buddies. All right. Well, thanks for that, Travis. Look, no risk it, no biscuit. We forget about those years, Alex.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Travis, for your service and appreciate you Right, and you may be entitled to financial compensation for having to watch Kent Graham. So check with your local attorneys on that. No, right. I mean, this has been a relatively recent thing of this very, quick pass game, RPO based offense really since 2020. But prior to that, 2019 was, unique because of the whole quarterback injury there. But, there were 5 years ago, they were chucking the ball downfield with Arians, as you talked about. So, I mean, this is relatively recent and, the game's evolved a little bit as well. So that's, the horizontal nature of it maybe has impacted things a bit as well. But whenever you have a quarterback that's not playing at an elite level, most offenses kind of run in this fashion.
All right, Brett Nile back with us. Hey, Dave and Alex, two quick questions. This question is for Alex. On the muff punt, it's obvious the Steelers messed up by not covering the gunner. His question is, did the Steelers or did the Patriots also mess up on a relatively short fourth down? He says he thinks it was 4th and 6. Should the Patriots have checked into a throw since it was completely uncovered? If gunner doesn't muff it, then by punting, they would have missed a golden opportunity to easily extend the drive. Number 2, he says, I know there's a lot of talk about Trubisky throwing off his back foot, but to me, it's a deeper issue. To my eyes, he seems to have happy feet. He seems to drift in the pocket, even if it's clean. When he rolls out, he doesn't seem to set his feet, even when there's no pressure. He also seems to get stuck in between while trying to decide to run or throw. And loses a chance to do either. Are you seeing this as well? Look, I think his mechanics have been flawed for sure. And I think sometimes he has kind of created his own pressure, if you will.
I'm with you. I think so. And I think 3 of the 4 sacks this year are responsible on Trubisky, which is disappointing. The O-line has done well and look even better than what the stats may show. In terms of the question about the punt, we talked about that a bit earlier. Again, some teams will have those automatic checks where it's not really something you audibly say. It's just something that's understood and kind of game plan for, saying, hey, if we ever get this look where gunner's uncovered for some reason because of usually because some, blown assignment or blown mistake by the opposition, let's throw the ball there. But it depends on game situation, tight game there. And do you trust your punter to throw? And I don't know about Jake Bailey's history. I don't think he's ever thrown a pass before. I mean, that's not a gimme, even though the dude's wide open. You're asking a punter to throw the ball 20 something yards against a rush and, that change in operation and stuff like that. So there is no guarantee. And some teams, although Bailey, I don't believe is one of those guys, you have a lot of Aussie punters, and those aren't always good throwers. I remember Jordan Berry could not throw a lick. He actually did a punt kick pass at Eastern Kentucky because there was like this wild SportsCenter top 10 play because the guy could not throw the football. So there's a risk there as well. So again, some teams have those checks, some teams don't. Sometimes it depends on situation. It's a good question for Belichick. But obviously, the Patriots did not have that check because they obviously punted the ball there.
And also, playing Belichick ain't afraid to turn you loose or anything like that. Maybe the old, maybe worried about the old starfish tightening up a little bit there.
The what?
God,
I think I just got it. Okay, all right, moving on.
I don't need to. Sorry, people. Don't explain that one to the kids.
Yeah.
There. Chris writes in, hey, it's Chris from
I can't believe you said that. Oh my.
Oh, hey, it's Chris from nothing like laughter for soup for the soul, right? Even that kind of naughty laughter. Hey, it's Chris from Old Bridge, New Jersey. Been listening for the past 6 seasons. Love the work. He said he met Alex in training camp in 2019. Alex brought up an awesome point about the ultra conservative second and long play calls in the last game. He says, I feel like they did that JV half roll out, hitting a 3-yard out route on second and long versus soft coverage a few too many times. He says, I don't love the short pass, but I absolutely hate it if there's no creativity given these wide receiver, no yak potential. The majority of these quick outs ended with quickly falling or being pushed out of bounds immediately. Why does it feel like when I watch some of those good offensive teams that when they throw short, there's also great yak opportunity for the receivers? Do you expect any changes there? Look, I think, Chris, I know we got tired of Randy Fichtner saying throw short, run long, but I think we should see some of these quick slants, hit some of these guys on the mesh, some in-breaking routes here, maybe a couple of tunnel screens or something along those lines to get guys the football running in space a little bit more.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little mixed on if I like those play calls. It's good that he's throwing on second and long, because last year they ran the ball on second and long a ton, which inevitably turned into third and long. And so the idea being, let's get, we're facing second and 11 or second and 10, let's get 5 yards and get third manageable. So those are play calls that are not going to get you 15, but they're not going to get you, hopefully an incompletion, and then definitely put you in third and long, obviously. So yeah, I'm a little mixed on that overall, because they were effective. They did put themselves into third, more manageable situations. But as the readers, commenting on, they're going to get you 5 yards. You're going to go out of bounds. There's really not a lot of yak opportunity there, and they're pretty limited in terms of the upside of the play. So it beats running the football, but not by a lot, I guess. So I understand the frustration there, but it really was more about the predictability of it. Every second along, they were doing that half roll to get 5 yards, and they were playing for third manageable the entire game without a lot of great weapons overall. So yeah, I understand the thought and the concern.
Jason Kelly writes in, "Hey boys, love you both. Thanks for all the hard work and great content. My question is around the offensive line play and how that pertains to the offensive strategy. I understood the Steelers' desire to be conservative if they didn't have time to throw, but the line has been acceptable. They have weapons at the skill position. What is the reason for staying conservative if the line is playing reasonably well? Is it just because of the quarterback position and or Canada? Why plan to be conservative if they have play callers they can utilize to be more successful?" Well, I think first and foremost, there have been deeper concepts here, but on the flip side, there hasn't been people running wide open. And I think a lot of this is being dictated from a lot of this middle of the field safety type stuff. And, you want a single high situation, you better run the football, right?
Yeah. In terms of, forcing that 8-man box. Yeah. I mean, that's the point you're making there. I think it goes back to me, just the overall philosophy of our offense has growing pains. We have a good defense. Let's lean on our defense. Let's take a profit, not take a sack. Let's not turn the football over with a risky play and stuff like that. And that's why you're seeing this offense be more conservative overall. And I think that's just the driving reason behind the whole structure of how this offense is run.
Right. I mean, if you want to stay away from the single high safety, you're either going to have to throw these kind of outs, or you're going to have to go up, go up the thirds or something like that with them, or catch somebody on a one-on-one situation on the outside and throw over the top. Once again, Trubisky plays a part in this as well too, because he's shying away from certain situations here, I think, in some throws.
Yeah, but
and
again,
because of the rigid rules with Canada, and he's trying to take small profits.
Right. I think again, it just has to be a better understanding of what the progression is, what the read is, and kind of how this offense functions. And if you do that, then I think Trubisky's decisions become a bit clearer and easier to understand. But again, he is missing some stuff, and it's not always deep. To me, he's missed more stuff underneath than he's missed stuff over the top, and that's to me the most concerning part.
And once again, we go back to the way the Browns offense has functioned so far. They've shown that you don't have to chuck the football down the field 20 yards at a time.
Right. But again, they're averaging 200 yards on the ground. And so that allows them to not, they're getting chunk plays on the ground, not always through the air.
I think the Browns would be absolutely foolish to play a lot of cover 2 in this game, to be honest with you, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think on passing downs, I think on first and second down, you're going to probably see, like you said, cover 1, cover 3, single high looks. But I think on third down, you may get more cover 2.
All right. Let's see. First off, Al Reinhart, 27, no name here. First off, I would like to say that Steelers Depot has been a wonderful resource for Steelers fans. It's nice knowing we can come to one-stop shop for non-biased, accurate reporting. Thank you for that. He says, I know you hate hypotheticals. However, I would just like to throw out an interesting scenario. The Nebraska football program is already looking for a new head coach 4 games into the season. Therefore, Nebraska assistant coaches are likely looking for their next jobs, with Mark Whipple being the OC at Nebraska for 1 year. I would just like to see if you like his fit with the Steelers based on his experience with Pickett, ex-quarterback coach for the Steelers under Cowher, and his familiarity with Pittsburgh at the University of Pittsburgh OC. Look, I think you're going to hear I don't think that's crazy, and I don't think as hypotheticals go that's out there. I think you're going to hear Whipple because of the connection to Pickett and the connection to Pittsburgh, obviously previously. Who did Ben have? Wisenhunt, very quarterback kind of friendly type of guy. Here's the thing, though. I got a sneaky feeling that is it's going to be Sullivan, a guy that knows Pickett a lot already to this point, a guy that's obviously rooted in quarterback coaching and all. I've got a funny feeling that they're not going out. I understand, and people are going to throw out Whipple and all like that. I just got a funny feeling that your next offensive coordinator is going to be Mike Sullivan.
It certainly makes sense. I do like the Whipple suggestion, and obviously Ben's first actual quarterback coach was Mark Whipple back in 2004. But I know Nebraska's paying him a lot of money, and so he may still stay in some capacity because there's a lot of money. I don't know how all that's working in college football. So, I mean, if you want an outside name, Whipple's probably as good as anyone to suggest the tea leaves. You're doing our thing of connecting the dots, and I appreciate and like that a lot. So I get what you're saying, but right now, I think Dave's right that Sullivan would be the odds-on favorite.
One last one from LM writes in on Najee. Don't hesitate or think it's all hate mail on bashing Najee. He says he's average at best. He says should have taken Creed, Dickerson, or Freiermuth over him in the draft. He's slow and missing so many holes. He says running backs equal fungible, and your poll results show the overwhelming majority agree and know that's true. Look, I'm fungible, Dave. I think it's foolish to take running backs early, yada yada, in the first round and all like that. Najee, one or two runs in that game probably could have hit that different and all. My biggest thing with Najee overall is just he's not an explosive back overall, and it's just my bias towards the position and not Najee. I think Najee's a hell of a player, especially when healthy. And he's probably not 100% healthy, although, as I said, I think he'd look 9 times healthier than I thought he would be in that game against the Patriots. But offensive line and play calling and all that goes in hand with running backs and all. I do think I think Alex said this earlier in the show. Nick Chubb's the better running back, or at least right now.
Sure. I think Chubb, talent-wise, might be the best back in football. Some people will say Jonathan Taylor or somebody else, but I think Chubb's as good as anybody. I mean, I think Harris, to be honest, has gotten too much crap this week. I mean, he has maybe 2 holes, and that those are negative plays. Obviously, I'm not going to defend. The first play of the game, he bounced out. He shouldn't have. There was 3rd and short. He bounced. He shouldn't have done that. Just barely got the first down. Luckily for him, but Najee's a good player. He's battled through some foot injuries. He's missed some time. I got all the confidence in Najee, so I'm not worried about him. It's
easy to hyper focus on stuff like this, the way this offense is right now, and go after each individual guy. And I think that's what you're seeing there. And as far as my poll results go, if they're winning, do I get the same poll results? You know what I'm saying? I think that's all. I think that kind of stuff kind of blows in the wind. I will. And I hope Najee plays 8, 9, 10, 12 years with the Steelers, or even if he only plays 5, I hope there's super successful seasons with him. But even so, that's not going to change my view, at least, on that position being fungible. And, I don't think there's a good reason to draft a running back in the first round, period.
Yeah, I understand that philosophy, but my goal is draft good players, and Pittsburgh drafted a good player in Najee Harris. I'd rather draft a running back who may be fungible than another guy at a different position that's quote unquote more valuable, that isn't as good and doesn't help your team in as many meaningful ways. So if you draft good players, regardless of the positions, you're going to be a good team and have, talent. And I think Najee he's a good player.
I do as well too, and I think he's good out of the backfield, catching football and those kind of things. Boy, what about where's Derrick Henry's career at right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. The Titans offense looking pretty rough. There's just no receivers in the Titans offense. They trade away A.J. Brown. They got nothing outside of Derrick Henry.
Which came first, the offensive line, a good offensive line, or a good running back?
I mean, I'm always of the philosophy of building inside out and starting with the trenches. And, Pittsburgh has not probably done that adequately enough over the last couple of years. So there's ripe for criticism there. But again, there was really no offensive lineman to take when they took Najee. And so it's not like they passed up on some. I mean, there was Creed Humphrey, but they could have had him in the second round. Again, my whole stance has been, if you want to talk about taking Humphrey, it should have been Freiermuth versus Humphrey as opposed to Najee versus Humphrey.
All right. I think we got all of it here knocked out, most of them anyway there. So I know we're up against it about 2 hours. We didn't want this thing to go. I think this went longer than what even Alex wanted to go today. So we better cut it tight there. So anything else to add, Alex? We'll be back. You guys got the offensive, defensive breakdowns going up when? Later this afternoon or first thing in the morning?
First thing in the morning, yeah. Thursday morning, we'll have the scouting reports from myself and Josh Carney and Jonathan Heitrader. We'll have, X factors and predictions and a sack breakdown, hopefully, as well. So a lot of content still coming. And of course, Dave and I will come back Friday to talk about the Thursday game. Absolutely,
we will. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Make sure you shout out Scott Petrak on Twitter and thank him for coming on the show. Make sure you support MyBookie AG by using promo code Terrible at sign up as well too. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.